Hey everyone, and welcome to a deep dive that's going to really get you thinking. Today we're tackling a question that's, I think, always captured the human imagination,
Mm.
What if we can actually talk to animals?
Yeah,
And I don't just mean like understanding, when your dog's hungry or when your cat wants attention. I mean like real back and forth conversations like we have with each other.
it's a question that's captivated me for my whole career, and
Hmm.
it's one that's really moving from the realm of fantasy into the realm of actual scientific possibility. We already know that animals communicate in these incredibly complex ways,
Oh yeah.
but what if we could really decipher those signals, unlock their meaning?
Yeah, I mean, think about it. We've all seen those nature documentaries with like the intricate dances that honeybees do or the haunting songs of like humpback whales.
Right.
It's clearly communication,
Oh, yeah.
but it's like listening to a language we just don't understand.
Yeah, and that's where things are starting to get really, really interesting. The convergence of biology and animal behavior research and artificial intelligence is giving us tools that we've never had before to even begin to approach this.
Okay, so let's talk about that.
Mhm.
How is AI being used to crack the code of animal communication? Because that sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie to me.
It might sound futuristic, but the
Hmm.
reality is that machine learning algorithms are already being used to analyze these massive data sets of animal sounds and behaviors,
Hmm.
searching for those patterns and potential meanings. Think about it like this. Think
Oh,
about it like this. If you were trying to learn a new language, you would probably start by listening for repeated sounds.
yeah.
Try to figure out like which ones convey like really basic ideas.
Yeah.
AI can basically do that on a scale we could never achieve as humans. So processing, thousands of hours of, let's say, bird songs
Wow.
to try to identify which elements correspond to specific actions or even emotions.
So it's not just about identifying like the individual sounds, it's about understanding the context,
Hmm.
the grammar, like the underlying meaning of those
You
sounds.
got it.
Okay.
And that's where things get incredibly complex.
Mm.
It's not enough to simply create like a dictionary of animal sounds.
Right.
We need to understand how those sounds are combined, how they vary in different situations, and ultimately how they relate to an animal's internal state and its interactions with the world around it.
That makes sense. But are there any projects out there that are like actually making progress on this? Like, are there any real world examples of how AI is actually helping us understand what animals are saying?
Absolutely. There's a whole wave of research happening right now, and it's incredibly exciting. One project that's gotten a lot of attention is called Deep Squeak.
Deep squeak.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that name.
And they're focusing on rodent vocalizations.
Rodents. Really?
Yeah.
I always just thought they kind of squeaked randomly.
That's what a lot of people think.
Okay.
But it turns out that those squeaks, they carry a lot of information. Deep Squeak uses AI to analyze the frequency, the duration, even like the subtle variations in those squeaks. And they've been able to distinguish between calls that indicate fear, aggression, pleasure, even social bonding.
So we could actually know if a rat is happy or scared based on its squeaks.
Potentially, yes. And think about the implications of that.
Yeah.
It could completely change how we approach animal welfare, especially in research settings.
Hmm.
If we can understand an animal's emotional state, we can provide better care and we can create much more humane environments.
That's a really powerful point. It's not just about satisfying our own curiosity. It's about using this knowledge to actually improve the lives of animals.
Exactly. And the applications go way beyond just rodents.
Okay.
Researchers are using similar techniques to try to decode the communication of bats, dolphins, even primates.
Speaking of bats, I was reading about a project that's trying to understand how they communicate in those huge colonies,
Hmm.
where everyone's squeaking at once.
Yeah.
How do they even begin to isolate like individual voices in all of that chaos?
Right. You're talking about Professor Yossi Yovel's work,
Okay.
and it's really groundbreaking stuff.
Yeah.
Imagine trying to follow a single conversation in a room full of people talking.
Right. Impossible.
But his team is using these really cutting-edge algorithms to filter out all that noise and identify the individual vocalizations of specific bats within these massive swarms.
That's incredible. It seems like every new project is just pushing the boundaries a little bit further, opening up all these new possibilities.
It really does feel like we're on the cusp of a revolution in our understanding of the natural world.
Totally.
And what's fascinating is that, these projects aren't just focused on single species. There's a growing movement toward creating a kind of Rosetta Stone for animal communication.
Rosetta Stone.
Yeah.
That's ambitious.
Yeah.
Are you talking about like translating between a dolphin and a crow?
It might sound like science fiction, but the Earth Species Project is
Yeah.
working towards just that. They're building this massive database of animal sounds and behaviors from a wide range of species, and they're using machine learning to identify those underlying patterns and the potential universal elements of animal communication.
So they're looking for like the common threads, the shared structures that might exist across different animal languages.
Exactly. And what they find could revolutionize our understanding of how communication evolved, how brains process information, and ultimately what it means to be intelligent.
This is blowing my mind.
It is exciting stuff.
It really is. But before we get too carried away with like all the possibilities,
Sure.
I have to ask, what about the potential downsides? Like, is there a risk that we could get this wrong? That we could misinterpret what animals are saying?
That's a crucial question, and it's one that every researcher in this field takes very, very seriously.
I mean, we've all seen those cute animal videos online where people are like projecting human emotions onto their pets.
Right.
But like in reality, the animal might be feeling something totally different.
You're highlighting a really critical point. We need to be incredibly careful not to impose our own biases and assumptions
Right.
onto animal communication. We can't just assume that, like, a wagging tail always means happiness or that a growl always means aggression. The context matters, and we need to understand that animal emotions and expressions might be very different from our own.
So it's not just about the technology. It's about approaching this with humility
Absolutely.
and willingness to actually learn from the animals themselves.
100%. And it's about recognizing that even if we can develop the technology to communicate with animals,
Yeah.
it doesn't give us the right to exploit them or to impose our will on them.
It's a really important point. You know, it's like with any powerful technology, there's the potential for good and the potential for bad. It all comes down to how we choose to use it.
Exactly. And that brings us to a whole other layer of complexity if we can truly communicate with animals. How does that change our relationship with them? Do they deserve more rights? How do we ensure that this technology is used ethically and responsibly?
These are some heavy questions.
Yeah, they are.
It's like we're on the verge of unlocking this whole new dimension of life on Earth, but we need to be prepared for the challenges that come with it.
Yeah, we're stepping into uncharted territory, and we need to proceed with both curiosity and caution.
All right, listeners, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll be diving even deeper into the ethical and philosophical implications of talking to animals. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about all these like incredible breakthroughs happening in animal communication, and honestly, it's all a little mind-boggling.
It really is.
But now I kind of want to get into like the really big questions, the ethical and philosophical implications of all of this.
Right.
Like, if we can actually talk to animals, what does that mean for how we see them, how we treat them?
That's where things get really fascinating and, frankly, a little unsettling.
Yeah.
You know, for centuries, we've assumed this kind of hierarchy, humans at the top, animals somewhere below.
Right.
But what if this communication revolution forces us to rethink that entirely? It makes you wonder if, like, our inability to understand them has fueled that sense of separation.
Yeah.
You know, that us versus them mentality.
Yeah.
Like, if we could actually have a conversation with a dolphin or a crow, would we still see them as, like, fundamentally different?
It's a really profound question and one that philosophers have been grappling with for a long time.
Right.
But now, with the potential for actual interspecies dialogue, it's no longer just a theoretical debate. It's something we might actually have to confront in a very real way.
And it goes beyond just our perception of animals.
Yeah.
It raises questions about animal consciousness,
Right.
about their capacity for thought and emotion.
Absolutely.
Like, if we can talk to them, does that mean they're thinking and feeling on a level that we never even imagined?
That is one of the biggest mysteries.
Right.
And it's something that scientists and philosophers are really debating fiercely.
Yeah.
There's evidence that some animals exhibit these really complex behaviors, problem-solving skills, even a sense of self.
Like, I've seen those videos of elephants seemingly mourning their dead.
Right.
And it's hard to watch that and not feel like there's some kind of deep emotional understanding going on there.
Absolutely. And there are countless examples like that. But proving consciousness scientifically is incredibly difficult.
I imagine.
We can't just ask an animal, are you conscious?
Right.
And even if we could speak their language, would their definition of consciousness be the same as ours?
So even with all these advancements in AI and communication, the mystery of animal consciousness might remain unsolved.
It's possible, but even just exploring that question, even if we never get a definitive answer, I think it's a journey worth taking.
Yeah.
It forces us to examine our own assumptions about what it means to be sentient, to be alive, to experience the world.
Okay, so let's say for argument's sake that we do discover that animals have a level of consciousness that we never imagined.
Okay.
What then?
Yeah.
How does that change our responsibilities toward them?
That's where the ethical implications become really, really complex. Imagine a world where animals can actually express their desires, their fears, their hopes.
Wow.
Do we have a moral obligation to listen?
It opens up a whole Pandora's box of ethical dilemmas.
It does.
Like if a cow could tell us it doesn't want to be slaughtered, would we still eat hamburgers?
Right.
If a lab rat could plead for its freedom, would we continue experimenting on it?
These aren't easy questions.
Correct.
And there are no easy answers. Some argue that if animals can communicate their suffering, we're morally obligated to change our behaviors. Others believe that, humans still have a right to use animals for our own needs, even if it causes them distress. It's a debate that will likely continue for generations to come.
It feels like this technology could spark like a whole new animal rights movement,
Yeah,
one based on actual communication rather than just human interpretation.
that's a very real possibility, and it could lead to some really radical shifts in how we interact with animals.
For sure.
Imagine a world where animals have legal representation,
Well-
where their voices are actually heard in courtrooms and political debates.
It's mind-boggling, but honestly, it's also a little scary.
Yeah.
What if we end up exploiting this technology for our own, selfish purposes?
It's a very valid concern. There's definitely a risk that we could use this ability to manipulate animals, to control them, to profit from them even more than we already do.
Right.
Imagine companies using animal communication to create hyper-realistic entertainment or to market products directly to animals.
Right.
It's a slippery slope.
It's like with any powerful technology, there's the potential for good and the potential for abuse.
Absolutely.
It all comes down to how we choose to use it.
Exactly. And it's going to require a lot of careful thought, a lot of ethical debate, and a lot of humility.
Yeah.
We need to remember that we are not the only intelligent beings on this planet,
Right.
and that our actions have really profound consequences for other species.
So what does this all mean for the future of humanity? If we're not the only ones with language, with complex thoughts, with feelings, how does that change how we see ourselves?
That's the ultimate question, isn't it?
Yeah.
It could be very humbling to realize that we're not the pinnacle of creation, that there are other beings out there with rich inner lives, with their own perspectives on the world, but it could also be incredibly enriching.
It's almost like we're on the verge of discovering a whole new dimension of life on Earth. A
Yeah.
whole new way of understanding what it means to be alive, what it means to share this planet.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah.
And it's a reminder that we're really just at the beginning of this journey.
Right.
Who knows what incredible discoveries and challenges lie ahead.
Yeah.
But one thing is certain, the way we interact with animals is about to change forever.
Welcome back to our deep dive into animal communication.
Yeah.
We've been on quite a journey so far.
It really has been, from deciphering those rodent squeaks
Right.
to pondering the very nature of consciousness.
It's pretty incredible.
It is.
We've talked about the potential benefits of actually understanding animal languages.
Yeah.
How it could revolutionize conservation efforts or deepen our bonds with other species.
For sure.
But we've also, grappled with those potential risks like misinterpretation or exploitation.
And those ethical challenges, they're really profound.
They are. And honestly, we've barely scratched the surface of the philosophical implications of all of this.
Yeah.
If we can truly communicate with animals,
Yeah.
how does that change our understanding of intelligence, of sentience, of what it means to be human?
That's a huge question.
Yeah, it's almost like we're on the verge of discovering this hidden world,
Yeah.
this parallel society that's been existing alongside us all along,
Right.
but speaking a language we couldn't understand.
And imagine what that would mean for fields like, biology and zoology.
Right.
Imagine being able to actually ask a chimpanzee about its social structures or a whale about its migration patterns.
Wow.
The insights would be invaluable.
And it goes beyond just scientific knowledge,
Yeah.
What if animals have unique perspectives on art or music, even spirituality?
It's a fascinating thought.
It is. What if their ways of experiencing the world could enrich our own understanding of consciousness and existence?
It really makes you realize how limited our own perspective is.
It does.
We've been so focused on our own species, on our own way of seeing the world, that we've kind of overlooked this incredible richness and complexity of other forms of intelligence.
So how do we bridge that gap? How do we move beyond simply observing animals to truly understanding them,
It's a great question.
to forming meaningful connections based on mutual respect and communication?
Well, we've talked about the role of technology, the advancements in AI that are helping us decipher these animal languages. But I think it's clear that technology alone isn't enough.
Right? We need like a shift in mindset, a willingness to listen with open minds and open hearts, to recognize that, you know, other species have their own unique forms of intelligence, their own ways of experiencing the world, and that their perspectives actually have value.
It's about moving away from that anthropocentric view,
Right.
that idea that like humans are the center of everything,
Yeah.
and embracing a more biocentric perspective that really values the interconnectedness of all living things.
And acknowledging like the ethical responsibilities that come with this newfound ability to communicate.
For sure.
We need to make sure that this technology is used for good, not for exploitation or control.
It's a tall order, but I really do believe that the potential benefits far outweigh the risks.
I think so too. Imagine a future where humans and animals can actually collaborate,
Yeah.
where we work together to solve problems like climate change or habitat destruction.
Imagine being able to share knowledge and experiences and to really appreciate the beauty and diversity of life on Earth in all its forms.
That's amazing. It's a future worth striving for. And it all starts with that simple but profound question.
What if we could talk to animals?
Exactly. Well, thank you for joining us on this incredible journey. I hope it sparked your curiosity and left you pondering the possibilities that lie ahead.
As always, thanks for listening.
This is The Deep Dive signing off.